Good afternoon, everybody. It is Sunday, August 6, 2017, and you are in tune to another podcast of Intrinsic Motivation from a Homie's Perspective. I am Hamza.
And I am David.
And today we are blessed with Kisha Lee Crawford. I'm really excited to have a podcast with you, Kisha, because I spent a lot of time with Joanne, who was the director of Horizon Center of Intuitive Awareness, and every time that I'm with her and we're at different functions, a lot of people, even to this day, come up to her and they want to do freshen up their tools, or they want to know about new classes that she's having. And I understand that through Mary Bell, who we've interviewed a couple of weeks ago, that you have taken on the banner, if you will, of providing services that are similar to Horizon Center. Is that correct?
I do, actually. Hey guys, it's an honor to be here and to be able to teach these tools. It's interesting because I graduated from the program about 5 years ago, and at the time we weren't able to really take notes or anything like that, and so for me to just be able to remember these things, and I think it's the consistent use of the tools, just to be able to offer these things and know that they are still up to par with the original curriculum, because I even reached out to the Berkeley Psychic Institute just to see, if the curriculum was still, I guess, in present time, because I wanted to teach it from that perspective. And, it's just I have an 8-month program, and I have the level 1 fundamental energy tools, the level 2 next level tools, and then the clairvoyant program. So it's, it's been amazing to not just be a student of these teachings and to utilize them, but then to gift them and put them in the hands of other people and see how they work for them. So I'm being kind of a student on the other side, to see how these tools work for other people, and to hear the changes in their lives and stuff is just amazing. So, it's an honor to be able to fill in and offer that to, the people here in Atlanta, and just to kind of step, in those shoes and follow on that path behind someone as amazing as David's mom, Joanne. So it's a blessing. Honor to be here.
Yes, absolutely. If you can kind of go back to, we always talk about your hello or your introduction. Many cases, many people are living one life, and then they have a defining moment where they are introduced to this type of work. So if you can go into that, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I got into this work because at the time I was actually going through a separation from my son's father, and was just kind of lost. And I was working at a hair salon. Had a friend of mine who was a coworker there, and she was going to Horizon Center, getting the healings, that sort of stuff, and Phoenix and Dragon bookstore, which was right next door to it. And she told me one day, come to this bookstore, and I just, I want you to get something, or I want to give you something from here. And I said, okay. So I go to this store, it's Phoenix and Dragon, and she shows me this wall of crystals, and I'm thinking, what am I going to do with this rock? I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do with a rock, but okay, in this situation. I'm broken, I'm distraught, I'm just very vulnerable, not sure if I'm making the right decision. And so I grab some stones, and she takes me to Horizon Center. I get a healing, and I was just kind of intrigued by this place, and it felt like home. It felt comfortable. I thought the stuff that they did was very interesting because I've always been very sensitive, and growing up, I grew up actually Southern Baptist here in Atlanta, so I had a connection to spirit, but it felt disconnected at the same time. It just felt like there was something more out there. So when I found Horizon, it felt like, what is this? I'm kind of curious, And from there, I just, started taking classes. I would go to the healings, and it just evolved from there. Next thing you know, I'm assisting. And when Sharon Kufelt was there, before she moved to California, I assisted her with the women's meditation there. And eventually we stopped doing that for some reason, and I moved it over to an opportunity came up, moved it over to Phoenix and Dragon, and decided one day, I always knew I wanted to offer the energy tools once I graduated through the program, just because I saw how it changed my life in ways that were so unexpected. But it felt like I had a sense of control over things at the same time. And I knew I wanted to teach these tools, once I learned them and adapted them to my daily life. And it just so happened that here I am, and it's actually kind of funny because when I was at Horizon, I thought one time in a meditation, I just kind of had this insight about working maybe for Phoenix and Dragon Bookstore, but I always knew very clearly that I wanted to share these tools with the world. And it's the funniest thing because here I am. I work for Phoenix and Dragon Bookstore, technically, but I'm teaching these energy tools right at the same center where Horizon was. So it's kind of like come full circle for me, and it really just started by going there, getting healings, and just being intrigued by everything else they offered, and I just I drank the night, I guess.
Wow. So you're in the exact location where Horizon was?
Exactly. Like the next level tools room, that is where I teach my fundamental, and my next level tools is right there in that room.
Yeah. All right. Wow. Great.
Yeah, so it's like literally is coming full circle for me. So it's definitely an honor and a blessing. It's kind of funny, I think.
Hey, no accidents for sure.
Yeah.
Exactly. Rule number 1.
At this point, are you just doing everything on your own, or are you working with anyone else?
In teaching, or
in your classes and everything you offer, is it right now? Is it just you?
Yeah, I work mostly by myself. I teach classes over at Phoenix and Dragon. I have a weekly women's meditation from 7 to 8 p.m. I've actually, proud of myself, I realized I had a 5-year anniversary this spring doing that.
Congratulations.
And, that's the one I took over from Sharon. And then I also teach a midday meditation there. I just had a 2-year anniversary, apparently, with that one. On Thursdays and Saturdays, I teach maybe once or twice a month. So that I obviously do by myself. And then the energy tools, I have an idea of actually developing a school with one other graduate, Dana Robinson. I'm not sure if y'all are familiar with her, but her and I actually graduated from the IDP program together, and she also teaches these tools, but she teaches them privately. So I was thinking, well, why don't we get together? We can collaborate. And so we're kind of in the talks of actually having a physical location, but maybe an online school as well for offering these tools. But for right now, it's just me. And, it's kind of a one-man band right now.
Great.
I love it.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, at Horizon, there was, if you will, a funnel in that many people, kind of like what you just mentioned, they come in for free energy healing just to get an introduction to the type of modalities that exist there. And many people like it, and then they want to know more, and then they start with the initial class and the next steps and then IDP. Is that pretty much what you're finding with the women's meditation? People come in to know more about the women's meditation and then go to the other classes, or how does that work?
Yes, that is correct. That is my, I guess, the women's meditation I would consider my lead generator, because that's where a majority of the students enrolled have come from there. I've had a few that have just seen it on the calendar and decided to just kind of hop in, but majority of the students do come from the women's meditation. What I like to do actually is, in my meditations, I apply some of the tools and assist with the visualization in a way, but it's kind of like in your subconscious, I'm kind of, planting these little seeds so that if you ever do kind of come into the the IDP program, you're like, that's what she's trying to get us to do, when she says connect to the earth or, calling your energy back, stuff like that. Like, they don't actually know that. I don't actually teach the tool or technique specifically, but just the idea of it. And so it's kind of nice because if you go in between the two, the IDP and any of my meditations, you have this familiarity, and then you can start to apply those tools while you're in meditation. So it's kind of like practice, but also being able to have that opportunity, that assistance, that guidance to apply them and to make any kind of necessary changes in your life. So yeah, that's basically kind of how I get most of my students is through the women's meditation, but hopefully moving to online presence and all that will open the doors for a lot of other avenues.
Absolutely. With the women's meditation is interesting because the premise of us even starting a podcast was from the homies' perspective, because there aren't a lot of guys that go through these type of teachings or at least speak about it publicly. And what do you find a common thread with the women? Obviously, not obviously, but for the most part in my experience, any type of personal development, self-help, spiritual growth is heavily dominated by women. Are you able to pinpoint reasons why they come through your funnel through the women's meditation?
I think women are naturally drawn to relying on community and assistance, I think, and helping one another, finding a place to feel safe, I think, is a reason why women tend to a lot of times be more into this type of spiritual development and self-help work, balancing, home life or career, things like that. We naturally are multifaceted creatures, we're very creative beings. We see things from a bigger perspective. So I think it's kind of just our, intrinsic nature, actually, that we seek something greater than ourselves. To, because we're programmed, I think, to not see things linear, but, in a bigger concept. And so I think that's why spirituality is maybe more dominated at times by women, but also I think it's because men, in a societal standpoint, haven't always been validated for vulnerability. Speaking about emotions or, things that are more etheric, stuff like that. So I think that's probably at least my reasoning why women typically dominate more of the spiritual growth and self-help and, spiritual development, even the intuitive development side. Women are naturally intuitive. We talk about a woman having a sixth sense, So I think it's just when you are a woman and you naturally are in tune with your intuition, or you have this sort of vibe, this energy, this force that moves through you, I think something like an intuitive development program or things to help you expand your most authentic self, your highest self, is something that just kind of naturally will pique your curiosity. I think it's just part of who you are. So I think as women, that's just what we're just drawn to. Mm-hmm.
I couldn't agree more with you, Kisha. I think when I was a student, and this was like 30-something years ago, I think the women, it was like 7 to 1, 7 women for every male.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there was always a lot more women. And I think they're just, with dealing with energy, they're just a little more, in tune, a little more sensitive, especially with the ability to create and give birth. And so having a, energy or a spirit that can, come into their space for those kind of purposes, they're just way kind of ahead of the game in certain aspects than men as far as just energy and being aware of it.
Yeah, I think so. I heard a story one time that it said basically, women are natural, and I tell the story in some of my meditations and classes about how women are naturally, we're creative beings. We take something and we can recreate it into something even greater at times. You give a woman grain, she can make bread. You give her groceries, she can make, a meal. You give her a house, she makes it a home. You give her, sperm, she can give you a child, and problem is if you give her any crap, everything else she gives you, she multiplies. So, if you give a woman any crap, you better be careful what comes out on the other end. But yeah, women are creative creatures, so, it's just, yeah.
It's proof positive because you can always say, if you look at any male that's in the public eye that has consistency over years, like if you think of presidential people, or you think of our icons like a Martin Luther King or some others, they all mentioned that they wouldn't be at the level that they were at their peak if it weren't for a woman. So
exactly.
Speaks volumes. Do you now, as far as you living in Atlanta, it's interesting because in Atlanta, in my opinion, being an outsider, there's two different types of Atlantas. Like there is an Atlanta before the Olympics and then after the Olympics. And then before the recession and then after the recession. And Atlanta is still seen as, it's a pocket in the South for like spiritual development in a community that continues to grow. But have you seen, if I would use another before and after, a change between or before 2012 and after 2012 with relation to your development and the people you work with?
Yeah, I would say so. It's funny, though, because I do seem to attract, like a lot of my close friends are like native Atlantans. For some reason, I don't know how or why, but I guess because I consider myself a native. I've been here 26 years, so I guess I seem to also kind of attract that vibe. And it's funny because I have a friend of mine who's got, they sell T-shirts that say the old Atlanta and stuff on it. But just since 2012, I would say, yeah, there's been a big growth and a big change. You see, obviously, buildings going up left and right and stuff like that. But spiritually, I would say you see a tremendous growth in the people here in Atlanta because we have so many transplants. You're having so many people from California coming over here. I think, not to be stereotypical, but, they may have a little bit more of an open mind, that kind of thing. So they come here, people from, New York, all this sort of stuff, and, New Orleans after Katrina, things like that. And people move here, and I think that does change the demographics. I noticed that, at the bookstore, there's a lot of different people coming in there. There was even like a church tour, I guess, of the bookstore, which is like a field trip or something. I think a lot of people are becoming more open to it, and especially because it is here in the South with all the change going on, individually and collectively, especially after 2012. I think that a lot of the maybe more religious ideals and things like that are also coming to light, and certain people may be looking for something a little more, especially when it comes down to what you see on TV and politics, things like that. I think people are starting to wake up and feel like there's something more out there. I can take some of these ideals and apply them, but some of this other stuff I got to kind of filter out, and right. I think that is why people, with so many different people coming to Atlanta, I think that's why there's this sort of soul searching, this, collective that's awakening and arising, and, it allows for people like myself to, be able to share what we know. So, I think the demographics here is definitely changed after 2012, and so it's affecting the spirituality overall here in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm. I know Phoenix and Dragon, their events, a lot of events are standing room only now, where it will be a trickle of folks before. It just seems like there's a greater interest, as you mentioned. And what I've also seen is just in traditional medicine, they would never talk about things like chiropractic or yoga. And now there's more of an acceptance of complementary medicine to traditional medicine. So I'm actually encouraged when you said they're doing the church tours, because there's obviously reaching across the aisle, if you will, and not separating where many people would separate the two before.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's also, a Scientology place up the street too, like a stone's throw from it. And it's funny because Roswell Road is actually considered, I guess they call it a metaphysical mile, because there's so many little places like that, holistic places, that go up and down the street there. So it's pretty cool.
Do you have any spiritual teacher or author or anyone that you follow?
Yeah, I follow a few different people. They don't all know me or necessarily like that, personally, but I do have a few people that I look forward to seeing their posts or emails, things like that, or just kind of consider, like a little spiritual icon for myself. One person, obviously, is Louise Hay. I use her information a lot and apply it to just, her affirmations, things like that, apply it to how I see myself, my body, stuff like that. There's another lady, Lisa Michaels. If you are familiar with the Body Awareness Studio upstairs from where Horizon used to be, Leslie Clayton up there, she's actually done some work with Lisa Michaels as far as like becoming a natural rhythms facilitator. Lisa helps with working through the different elements and applying those principles to your life. I use her work and have read her books a lot. Who else is someone? Doreen Virtue, definitely one of my faves. That's actually how I started with getting into cards and doing readings and stuff like that, is with some of Doreen Virtue's oracle decks, and I use her Goddess Oracle deck actually every Monday with the women's meditation. I use her Messages from Your Angels deck for my midday meditation guidance, and so I like her a lot. Let's see. Who else is there? I know there's a couple other ones. They're kind of, I guess, I wouldn't say mainstream, like Christy Marie Sheldon. She teaches an Unlimited Abundance program. I've taken her course several times. Lisa Nichols is another wonderful author. She's someone that I don't know, I guess you could say inspired to be like. I think she's amazing, her transformation and her story. So, yeah, I would say those are some empowering women that I look up to and then inspire to be like. So, yeah, I would consider them spiritual teachers outside of the ones that I've been able to call mentors here in Atlanta.
Great. So you teach the classes you teach. You have a lot of stuff offered for women, of course, and stuff. But the doors are open to anyone, or is it just mostly female type classes?
No, the only classes that I offer for just women is the women's meditation on Mondays. But the midday meditation, the Saturdays, as well as the intuitive development program, all that's open to everyone.
Yeah, open to everyone. Okay.
Yes, all genders.
All genders.
Yes. Whatever you consider yourself, it doesn't matter. Come on in.
Yeah. So what would you say if someone were to ask the difference between getting spiritual coaching as opposed to spiritual counseling? What's the difference between the two of those, if any?
They're very similar. The difference between spiritual coaching and spiritual counseling, I think coaching is a little bit more of long-term assistance, because counseling can sometimes be, a little bit more sporadic, maybe not as consistent. So I think that's what the difference is between the two. I think counseling can involve obviously a lot of listening and maybe applying, giving advice for maybe the moment, but I think coaching is a little bit of a longer a little bit more of an investment, with time and nurturing. And I think with coaching, you maybe give techniques or certain principles this person can apply to not just that particular situation, but to life.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
In that regard, in that same vein, there seems to be two types of groups of people, if you will. There's some that will come for a reading or see you at a fair, and then they'll come the next month to see you at the fair, but they never go beyond that. Or they, they're always giving you the seniority. And are you finding ways to get them to become more empowered to start taking responsibility for their own kind of responsibility for their own action? There's people like career students, right? I mean, I think we're all, knowledge is infinite, but do you find that there's a greater percentage that you can kind of make self-aware as opposed to constantly reaching out to you for a 15 to 20-minute reading?
I think so. I think I do a good job at explaining things in a way, and like in regards to saying this is an intuitive development program. I'll say things like helping you to find your own truths, like instead of come to me for all your answers, you know what I mean? Like, so I think I verbalize my boundary, by just choosing my words carefully. Say, empower, this is the course, or, my classes, or my intention is to help empower you to, use these tools, or, make certain changes for yourself and just become aware of your why and, the subconscious triggers of them. So I think in the way I speak about what I do, I like for it to come across more as, hey, you got to do the work. I'm here to help you, but you got to do the work, versus, I'm going to, just like, okay, let me see what your problem is, and okay, let's keep working on this, and, that kind of thing. It's, I like to more so focus on, like, look, let's just kind of, if we can, like, just take the shortcut and just nip it in the bud. Let's go straight to what the source is, so that you can not only, break certain habits or release anything that's not serving you, but learn how to recreate stuff too. That way you don't become dependent on me. You become reliant upon yourself.
Yeah.
I sounded smart saying that. That sounded real smart, huh? I like when I say that. I surprise myself sometimes.
Kudos to you, Kisha.
No, I pat myself on the back there.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I used to kind of always say it that way too. Is really, I'm here to kind of help you become your own psychic.
Yeah, just want to be a catalyst. I don't want to be a comforter all the time. I want to be a catalyst.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember about a year and a half ago, I got a television. Or a network had reached out to me and some other psychics from Horizon, and they wanted to do a TV show for Black psychics because they felt that there wasn't enough representation for people like us. And I love the fact that you had mentioned Lisa Nichols, and there aren't, there's still a handful that are out there in the public eye. But are you seeing a greater numbers of African Americans? I mean, usually, especially in the South, being the Bible Belt and religious base, are you seeing that they're making more of a breakthrough towards coming to you or your work as well?
Oh, yeah. There's, it was interesting when I first actually started working as an in-house reader at the bookstore. One of the readers came up to me and was like, oh, it's nice that, it's kind of cool to see that there's another one of us here, And then one day I remember, and there's been several times actually, now that I think about it, when I walked into the bookstore and I'm just kind of like surprised, at all the, African-American people that are in there. And I'm just kind of like, You know what I mean? Like, so it's definitely a shift, especially in my meditations, my women's meditation. Midday meditation, I notice a growing number of black women coming in, and even in my classes as well. And some of them even have mentioned about, maybe some of these concepts are a little, it's not that it's almost like their mind, they're aware of their mind trying to figure it out because they've been told for so long in their whole lives that this type of, stuff is, witchy or, it's evil and, sinful, that kind of stuff. So they're trying to program their mind a different way. But at the same time, it's kind of cool because you have outlets like social media where, you find so many empowering, like my whole, timeline or whatever, when I look at, say, Instagram, is filled with, black women who are using tarot cards or crystals and, entrepreneurs, things like that, stepping out spiritually about how they feel about things or what their gifts are and, things like that. And I just think it's the coolest thing, there's no competition. We all have intuitive gifts that we can offer the world, and everyone has, a different vibe or energy that they emit that someone else is receptive to. And so there's, enough people in the world for everyone. We're here to help each other, and I think it's phenomenal that this is happening through the black woman, which, has been so oppressed and suppressed for, years. So it's very empowering, and it's very, very purposeful, I think, to be a black woman at this time and be doing this work. Even when I stepped into Horizon for the first time and I saw Joanne, I was like, okay. I feel like this is like, like my grandma or something, but I was surprised that there was, an older black woman there as a director. And I was just kind of like, okay. And that's something that I like to tell people or show people, if I have any pictures from Horizon to share, is that, I learned this stuff from a black woman,
Yeah.
And so to me that's, I think that's important. I think it's a beautiful thing to be able to witness at this time.
Yeah,
It's great hearing you say that because one of the reasons why I turned it down and some others turned that TV show down is because at the time we felt they wanted to make it like the Atlanta Housewives of Psychics or something, like very sensational, very stereotypical, and it was just off-putting. So the fact that you're seeing
I've been approached by those before.
And it's just like, okay, yeah. I'm not going to participate in something like that.
Like years ago, it was, a while ago, it was just kind of interesting because I do remember I was at Horizon one time and I believe Joanne was telling us that there was, I think the Real Housewives of Atlanta, they wanted to get readings, and wanted to come in for readings or hire us to go there for readings. And I think one of the reasons, things like that don't always fall through is because the ego factor, even though we're all, spiritually connected and spiritual aspirants, I think that we still have, a worldly self to us. So sometimes, I think everyone's maybe individual ego will get in the way, or maybe at the same time it doesn't resonate with our highest self. I found that the one opportunity that I had to work on a show like that, they wanted the person that they wanted me to make a joke about, like I know that person, and they wanted me to, just make some kind of joke like, what is it? Oh, so-and-so is psychic, and they didn't see that coming, and it was just kind of snarky, and I was just kind of like, I get the joke, and I've said it myself, but not with that same tone. They were trying to get me to be more, I guess, sarcastic and passive-aggressive with it. And I was just like, I know that it just didn't vibe well with me. Needless to say, I didn't go on in that particular show or series. I'm like, that's fine, because you're not going to jeopardize my authenticity, for your personal gain. It's just not, I'll find my purpose elsewhere, So, and they even, I think one time in that same particular show, it was something about, trying to make two of the people fight because they said that there was someone trying to do a voodoo ritual on another person, and it was just kind of like, what is this? Like this is not my reality. And I know that this is a reality show and it's, still constructed, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm not, this is not something that I can invest my time with. So.
Yeah, definitely they're looking for some drama. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, but hopefully, one day something will come along that will, I think, be able to shed light on what it really means to be, whether they're black and a woman and spiritual, and here in Atlanta they're looking for all those facets or whatever it is. But, hopefully at some point there will come a time where, we can be seen in a positive light and maybe help other people through that avenue or through that outlet of, TV or whatnot, to just to bring awareness that it's not all the stereotypical woo kind of stuff. There's a practicality to being psychic and living intuitively and consciously.
Yeah. So in all your work, you have any I don't know if I want to say wild, but just like wow experiences, anything that you experienced that's just like, wow, just kind of wowed you?
Yeah, there's been, several different, I'm like, where do I begin? We got enough time? There's been several different stories. I'll actually talk about my first reading. I had just started going into classes at the Horizon Center, and I was cutting hair at the time, and that's when I had, was going through that breakup with my son's father, and a friend had introduced me to Horizon and so forth. And so I was cutting this guy's hair. He would come every month to get his, businessman haircut. And one day he came in, and I just, was like, you all right? Something's kind of off a little bit. And he was like, yeah. He was like, I guess I'm all right. I'm maybe a little tired or something because he traveled a lot. And I said, okay, cut his hair. See you next time. Next month he comes in, and I tell him the same thing. I'm like, how you doing? And he says, oh, I'm okay. I'm good. I feel good. And I'm like, are you sure? And, he's kind of like, well, why are you asking me? And so I tell him, I was like, I don't know. It's just something seems a little different about you. Something seems off. I was like, you seem like overall on the outside, I feel like you seem okay, but I don't know why on the inside I feel like there's like you feel tired or there's something, And he said, well, he's like, I'm good. I should be all right. And I didn't see him for a couple months. After that, he came in and told me that after the last haircut I had given him, he had a physical, his annual physical. He went to the doctor, and they basically put him on a stretcher and didn't know if he was going to live or die because they weren't sure based on his vitals. Things weren't looking very consistent. And long story short, he ended up telling me when he came in for his next haircut that he had somehow got a virus in his system. They didn't know if it was like Lou Gehrig's disease or if it was something, maybe respiratory, autoimmune. They weren't sure what it was. But what did I think? And I was like, well, I don't know. Why are you asking me? I'm just cutting your hair, He said, well, he was like, you told me twice that something wasn't right. He was like, and then I go to get a physical, and they basically telling me I might die in 5 minutes. He was like, I travel the world. I have a good life. I just, didn't see that coming. He said, but you've been telling me stuff before the doctors have. So I told him, I was like, okay, we're getting deep. So I'm like, I feel that you have some kind of virus or disease. I feel like he may have gotten it from overseas, like either in China or, maybe South America, somewhere exotic, because he would like to travel when he was away on business and do kind of very adventurous, cool type, I guess, sort of vacation things, outings and so forth. And he said, okay, all right, I can take that. And he asked, did I think he was going to die from this? And I was like, oh. And I'm thinking at this point, I'm like, dude, I'm just a hairstylist. I'm just a hairstylist. I'm just here to cut your hair. Like this is, they're getting too deep right now. And I said, well, okay, you're going to die, yes, one day, right? I knew that was definitely something finite that I could guarantee. I was like, I know you're going to die one day. If it's a Tuesday or Thursday, I don't know. And he said, well, he's like, the thing is I've come to accept that if I die from this, I'm going to be okay. He's like, I had loving parents. I had a great childhood. I've had a great career. My marriage kind of went down the gutter, but he was like, it was great while it lasted. He was like, I have no regrets in life. And I was like, wow, okay. And just what came to me was I was like, I don't feel like you're going to die from this disease. I do feel like you'll have some sort of residual health issues. And so he goes, after his appointment, comes back a month later and tells me that apparently whatever was in the system has cleared itself, but now he actually suffers from sleep apnea. And when he told me that, I was like, really? And I was like so shocked because I'm just sitting here like, how did I know this? How did I know this information? And he was obviously very grateful because he was like, had you not told me, all these things prior to, he was like, I don't know if I would have taken certain steps or been able to go through it as easy as I was able to. And when I looked at him in the mirror, I just saw this flash of green light. And I know that there were trees because I was kind of in a fishbowl, sort of a hair salon. There were windows all around me, and there were trees outside. But, to me, that flash of green light, it wasn't like I looked up and saw a reflection of the trees. It was definitely a lot brighter. And at the time I was looking at, I had just gotten into Doreen Virtue's angel cards and books and things like that, and knew that green represented healing through the Archangel Raphael. So I was like, okay, and I just took that as a sign. And then, that was my first actual reading, and I hadn't completed, the program or anything yet. I just was using whatever little tools I had and just trusting my intuition and what was kind of pushing me. So that was my first ever reading that I did. And then just, recently there was a time where I was heading over to the bookstore, and it was a quicker story, but this is I was heading over to the bookstore. I had a reading to do, and Atlanta traffic, Roswell Road, all that can get kind of congested here in Sandy Springs, and I was running a little bit behind. I was still going to get there before the actual appointment time, but wanted to be there maybe a little sooner. And as I'm sitting there at the light on 285 and Roswell Road, I just use my tools, from the fundamental tools, or the I call them fundamental tools. I guess at the time they were essential energy tools, and I just grounded, the bookstore and that sort of thing. And I get there, and my client is like, how long have you been here at this bookstore? I said, well, I've been here a few years, but I was coming here before I started working here. Why? And she said, she was like, I've been coming here for 20 years. She's like, I live in Atlanta all my life. I've been coming to this bookstore, for a long time. She said, and it was the weirdest thing because before you walked in, she was like, I was sitting down, and all of a sudden I just felt this heaviness move through the bookstore. And I was like, really? And she said, yeah. She was like, it wasn't bad. It didn't feel bad or anything. She was like, but it was just this heaviness. She was like, and everything felt kind of still but not, And she was like, I can't really describe what it felt like outside of saying it felt heavy, and it just moved through the bookstore. She said, and I had to get up and, move around and stuff like that, because she said she had never felt anything like that in the bookstore. But I just thought it was funny because she kept saying, yeah, it happened right before you came in. And I was just like, interesting, because right before I came in, I was using my tools. So, and anytime I've used any grounding or anything like that, I found that grounding always feels kind of heavy. And so I thought that was kind of cool, because I know the tools work for me, but for someone, to be that sensitive to that feeling of what was going on around them, and I'm a quarter mile up the street, I thought that was pretty cool. So.
Wow.
I remember your son coming through Horizon. He was relatively young now. How old is he now?
He is 16, Mr. Parris.
Wow.
16 years old. Yeah, he's 16 and about 6'1", 6'1". Yeah, he's actually starting 11th grade tomorrow.
Very
and
nice.
we'll be doing varsity basketball, I'm assuming. So, yeah, very proud of him. Yeah, Miss Joanne always loved him. If I brought him to the center, she just, was like she had blinders on. I'd be like, hi, Miss Joanne. And she just kind of like, hey, he's okay, bye. Where's Paris? Hey, Paris. Like, he's always been, every time he came to Horizon, he got a lot of love there. So it's funny.
Do you think the love has rubbed off in the realm of spirituality? Do you know if he uses his tools, or he's pretty shut off right now since he's a teenager?
I actually think Paris is pretty sensitive and open. Actually, the other day we were in the car, and I was just, talking to him about, setting an intention, for this new school year, and knowing, that this 11th grade year, Scouts look at this, colleges look at this. I know there's a lot of, maybe a lot of anxiety, but also a lot of excitement, So just, fine-tune what maybe your intention is. And I was teaching him actually the mock-up tool from the IDP program. And, when you have a 16-year-old that takes their headphones out, and turns off their music and they're intently listening, you're like, oh, okay, I better say something right now, So at that moment, I was like, I ain't got time to teach him the full course, but I'm going to teach him this one. And I, as an intuitive parent, I can tell that he's applying these, he's feeling it. Anytime I've taught him anything, I can tell that he is listening and feeling it, because when Sharon was here, she actually attuned him as a level 2 Reiki practitioner when he was 8 years old. And not that he, just goes around doing Reiki all the time, but he's always heard me say things, when he has a headache or when he's injured from basketball or something like that. I'll tell him, go give us some Reiki or whatever, or, before you eat your food or whatever, give us some Reiki. Or he's always healing or hearing me tell him to give something a healing, or if he puts his hands on me sometimes, I'll just tell him, thank you for the healing, because I can feel his intention and the energy through his hands that he's, gifting to me in that moment. And so I think these principles, it's kind of cool because he's a 16-year-old boy, and his dad goes to church, on Saturday nights. He goes to the church that I actually went to when I was a teenager, and it's just kind of interesting because he gets the best of both worlds. He goes to church with his dad. I ask him how the sermon was, not because I'm trying to be nosy necessarily, but I just want to know that he's there and listening. I do believe that you can still, be in the church and gain some kind of message or wisdom or something that you can apply, if that's your intention. And then he also has me on this side, with the other stuff. So, I definitely want to teach him though, with like the energy tools classes. He said he's actually open to it. And another couple of his other friends that are on his basketball team, so that they'd be open to it. And for me, that's great to hear, because I would love to, I wish I would have known these things when I was that age, you know what I mean? And for them to be young men, and some of them young black men, to know how to protect themselves energetically, how to ground situations, how to manifest things, and, just apply these principles to their lives, to create better for themselves and for their families and the world. I think that this is something that is actually vital that we should be teaching our youth. So that's also another avenue I would like to go down, one of these days with having a school. But I think he seems open to it. So I try to put those little nuggets in when I can.
It's encouraging because generationally there's been a breakage, right? Generations before had these tools, but we've seen cut off from that. And the fact that he's open now and may potentially be for the rest of his life, and he learned it from his mom, he may pass it on to his seeds, and there'll be more of a cohesive growth as opposed to where it was fractured in our history.
Exactly. And that's my thing is, it all comes full circle, because we were talking about women and growth and spirituality and stuff like that earlier, the change, that we look for in this world, a better world, really it moves through women, because if they're the ones that are awakening and learning and growing, and like you said, like someone like Joanne teaching her kids, myself teaching my son, even if it's just a little bit here and there, I think it just plants that seed for the next generation, and it starts with the home. It starts with the mom, teaching and expanding the mind and the heart, and the soul of their children. And then, these children grow up and they pass that on, So I think, as women, it's very important to teach our children this, but just, in general for, just generations to come. I think it's very important.
Yeah, that's great. That's really great to hear. I can remember when Joanne had started all this in the early 80s, I was in my teens, and, I didn't want anything to do with it. It was just, at that time, it was just my mom weird stuff.
Yeah, that's still what it is. Believe me, that's still what it is in 2017.
Yeah. My mom and her weird stuff, and it took me a couple years. But I guess about 18 is when everything kind of started to open up for me, and I started realizing what was going on, and started to embrace it. But yeah, that's great to hear that he's open to it and whatnot.
Yeah, my son. I think is kind of energetically sensitive. He's always been a little energetically sensitive, and I think that's just something that I've always wanted to nurture. You know what I mean? Because I was always very sensitive. Now, in hindsight, I realize that I was always very sensitive, but I didn't have, an outlet or someone who could teach me how to utilize that, as a strength, instead of it being seen as a weakness, And so, yeah, there was, even with him growing up, his dad sometimes, would be like, toughen up. And, I think that's kind of a dad's thing. But, I was like, well, okay, I want him to learn how to be, tough, and to be strong, but I also, want him to be vulnerable and be emotionally aware, have emotional awareness. So I thought that doesn't mean being sensitive, and being having that as a weakness. Emotional awareness is very powerful.
Yeah.
And speaking about awareness and spreading awareness, you mentioned that potentially you and Dana may have your own location and have an online presence and such. And I like that you reached out to Berkeley Psychic Institute. Are you planning any type of cross-promotion where the people that come through you or your site, they can get connected with the people at BPI and vice versa? Or is that too premature?
I think it might be a little premature, but it's a good idea. I just wrote that down on my little pad here. Thank you. Free advice there. I will take it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Just throwing things. And actually, when we get off the phone, I'll call you because I went to I'm in the Big Brother, Big Sister program, and he's starting 10th grade tomorrow. And so we were able to access this ungodly amount of money that he can get for fellowships and scholarships and such. I'll share that with you as a resource that you and your son can take advantage of as well.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
See, it's a funny thing because with my son, too, I just, feeding him these little tidbits, I just look, and maybe it's because I'm a intuitive parent or whatever, but, I look at him and I guess I validate him and help him to acknowledge when he creates something or manifests something, because he's intuitive himself. I noticed that. He's naturally intuitive, so I try to hone that skill that's already within him. So something like this, I'll just kind of tell him to applaud him, like, look, you made a little, good little manifestation too. You're part of this co-creation. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And we're coming up on the hour, so before we head out, you can tell people what the calendar looks like for August and September as far as people, women and men, that are interested in doing your introductory classes or your intuitive development and just overall classes and your appearances at Phoenix and Dragon along with your website. That'd be great.
All right, yeah. So as far as meditation, Phoenix and Dragon. I have my women's meditation on Monday nights. That is from 7 to 8 p.m. My Thursday meditation and my Saturdays are open to all, so men and women. And Thursdays is from noon until 12:45, so just kind of a little lunch break there. And then Saturday this month, I will be doing the last Saturday of the month. That's from 6 to 7 p.m. And all the meditations I teach at Phoenix and Dragon are $10. The women's meditation is guided meditation. You also get a reading. And in my Thursday and Saturday meditations, you get the guided meditation with a healing. As far as my intuitive development classes, I kind of a little word slur in there, but intuitive development classes coming up for August. We actually just started with the level 1 fundamental energy tools. That's actually what I called it, the emphasis on the fun part. We just started that this month, but if anyone wants to join, then they can definitely email me, and we can see where we can get them in. Next month, actually September, I'll be offering the level 2. So if anyone wants a refresher or something like that, maybe if they've taken it before and they just kind of want to jump in, refresh on the tools, they could definitely do that. And right now I've got the level 1, level 2 alternating months. So the fundamental tools will be offered again coming in October, which will be followed by the level 2 in November. So and the level 3 that's probably something that, if someone wants to refresh on that, they could definitely email me. My website is KishaLeeCrawford.com. That's KISHALEE Crawford.com. And then my email address is KishaLeeCrawford@gmail. So they can always find me, just Google or also on the Phoenix and Dragon website. So.
Awesome. I really enjoyed the conversation and look forward to all you have a lot of expansion in your area, I see, and can't wait to see that start manifesting, and we should have you back as you continue to grow.
Thank you. It's definitely a pleasure and definitely honored to be on this call with you too. So it just I always love, whenever I can spend time with Horizon alumni and stuff, I miss everybody.
Awesome. So again, Kisha Lee Crawford, the site is KishaLeeCrawford.com. You can get in touch with her there and find out everything else that she has going on and watch her as she blossoms in her path as well. So with intrinsic motivation from a homie's perspective, this is Hamza.
And I'm David.
And thanks again for everybody that is listening to this and will listen to the archives, and we'll see you on the next podcast. Thanks, Kisha.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kisha.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye-bye.